Hello and happy Tuesday, which is my book reviews day. And today I want to talk to you about The Horror at Pleasant Brook by Kevin Lucia. Lucia himself is the ebook and paperback editor over at Cemetery Dance, and as an author, he has published many a short story collection, and novella. But this right here is his debut novel, his first feature-length novel. It was released as a timed pre-order in October of last year through Thunderstorm Books, which is the signed and numbered edition you see before you, but it is getting a trade release through Crystal Lake Publishing later this year. And that is up for pre-order right now, and I think you should pre-order it. If you're like me, you're probably a fan of horror. Kevin Lucia is too. He likes to watch horror films to decompress after a long day's work, and that love of horror shines through in The Horror at Pleasant Brook. This is very much a throwback to 70s and 80s horror, and it has the potential to be a classic horror novel. So Pleasant Brook is a small town nestled deep in the Adirondacks, a fictional town that's very close to the very real cities of Smyrna, or cities in quotes, Smyrna and Boonville, New York, which is pretty cool because I know where both of those are through my own job, although he does have Boonville spelled wrong, but more on that later. Anyways, Pleasant Brook is a small, little town. The only law enforcement is one lone constable, Grace Matthews, our main protagonist. And an ancient evil has been unleashed in this town. The town is experiencing a bit of a quarantine because this does take place in a COVID world. It takes place in 2022. COVID cases are on the rise. People are quarantining again, back to remote schooling. So the streets are dead to begin with. When suddenly an ancient evil has been released on it. And this ancient evil is hungry. I don't want to say it's like a zombie thing, because it's not a zombie thing. But it is ready to take over this town and next the world. And it's up to Grace Matthews and Scott Carson? Carson was his last name, right? Scott Carter, who is a high schooler who has an absolute love of horror novels and horror films and everything horror. It's up to them to stop this ancient evil. And everything I've read by Lucia so far has been very Ray Bradbury-esque, a nice little small town, thinking some weird things going on. And this, not so much Bradbury-esque. This is going darker. And I'm not going to complain. I thought it was fantastic. I thought the evil, I don't want to say what it is, but this evil that is starting to spread throughout the town is it was good. It was kind of like a classic monster villain of sorts that features tropes of other classic monster villains, which if this were a real thing would make sense because, you know, a lot of these folklore are descended from other tales. So it's a very cool villain, very creepy. And Lucian, I don't know what I'm saying, Lucian. Kevin Lucia handles the characters very well. It starts off with many point of views. You have Lisa Owen. The very second chapter, you're going to have Robert Owen. Then you're going to have Grace Matthews, Scott Carter, Lester McDonough, Judd Collins. You have a huge cast of characters. And, I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything, but being a horror novel, that cast of characters is going to diminish. But he handles this cast of characters very well throughout this novel. And it's a very pleasant read, even though it's not, a pleasant book. It's a horror novel. It's a very entertaining read from start to finish. If I had to give one criticism, I suppose, it's that as this large cast of characters all encounter this evil, they all kind of describe it in the same way, which makes sense because they're all encountering it for the first time. But you're gonna see a lot of bulging eyes and a lot of stringy black hair mentioned over and over again, at least in the first half when all these characters, those wide cast characters, are encountering this evil. One thing I will say about the novel, not necessarily the novel itself, but this particular edition through Thunderstorm Books, is that I wasn't disappointed in the presentation. The presentation is exactly what you expect from Thunderstorm, leather-style binding, some of the best end papers in the business. I will say, though, the novel proper does have a lot of errors in it for this version. So much so that I actually reached out and said, like, hey, do you want, like, are you catching these errors for the trade edition? I have been told they are caught for the trade edition. So when I say that this novel has the potential to live up to being a horror classic, I am referring to the trade edition. The trade edition should be fantastic. I'm looking forward to actually getting my own copy. I've ordered it through Crystal Lake Publishing, mostly because it's only $25 for a signed and scribed hardcover plus a free, oh my God, chapbook. That's the word I'm looking for. A free chapbook. So if you want the numbered edition through Thunderstorm Books, you would have to go to the secondary market. Just be warned that there is at least one error every chapter or so. And I'm talking like a couple different errors. Some are just, typos. Some are missing words. You might have just, a word that's omitted on accident. And I mean, I guess grammatically it didn't catch it that the word is missing, but I mean, when you're actually reading it through, you're like, well, something's missing there. A couple different inconsistencies with spellings of some names. I mentioned Judd Collins as a character. His name is Judd Collins, but at a later point it's referred to as Judd Callan, like apostrophe S, because he's possessing an object. And there were two instances in this Thunderstorm book where just the wrong character name was used. One was like the character name was flipped with another character's name. The other instance was right in the second chapter where this Robert dude calls his wife by the wrong name because I think Kevin Lucia changed the name Rachel to Lisa and forgot to catch that. And oops. So like that part's a little disappointing. And I hate ripping into novels for it, but it was to an extent that I had to make mention because I don't want to, like I said, the content of the novel, the actual story of the novel, top marks. Like I said, it has the potential of being a classic novel. It needs to have those corrections in place, which I have faith that the trade edition does have in place. Just if you happen to buy the Thunderstorm books, you are probably going to notice those mistakes. Another one that I found funny, not to dig into the novel about little mistakes, but you can see that it gives you like the date and location for each of these chapters until you get to like the last third. Then a lot of that kind of goes by the wayside, but I mean, I guess it is what it is. It's not as sparse or all over the place like the first half is because it's more concise and following the same characters. But anyways, you are following it through the week leading up to Halloween, and there is at one point Saturday. Nope, that's not Saturday. At some point you get to Saturday, and one of the characters refers to Scott having to go to school, log in for remote school. And you can kind of chalk that up to it being his mother, who is very much an alcoholic. But then later, a couple chapters later, Scott himself says, "Oh, I'm skipping school today." And I'm like, "Bro, it's Saturday. You don't have school today." But it's stuff like that. I think, I'm not sure if it was just a tight schedule with the Thunderstorm edition and it didn't quite get the other draft or polish that it needed for this Thunderstorm edition, which is a shame because it is a beautiful production of a book. I mean, Thunderstorm does a wonderful job with these black voltage titles, and this production-wise is no different. It's an incredible job. It's just a little sad that the text has so many errors. But like I said, those errors should be fixed in the trade edition. I feel like I spent half this video complaining about errors, and I feel really bad. I'm sorry, Kevin Lucia, if you watch this. I didn't mean to do that. Like I said, as far as the novel goes, I praise it. Content-wise, I think it's a great story. It's a very fun story. I have a copy on order of the trade edition. Very much looking forward to seeing if any other changes occurred within it, because I think with polish, it has the potential of being a classic horror novel. So as I said, it is available through Crystal Lake Publishing. It's $25 for the title. And it's signed and inscribed. You get a free chapbook. If you are a subscriber to the Cemetery Dance newsletter, there was an email last week on how you could also get a free paperback from Cemetery Dance, which I think there were 3 or 4 titles. I know 2 of them were Kevin Lucia titles, Mystery Road and Night Road, which I've read Mystery Road. That's fantastic. Haven't read Night Road yet, but I do own a copy. Which I think all of that for $25, plus shipping, is just a wild deal. I mean, that was while supplies last, and it's very possible and very likely that supplies are gone already, because I haven't seen another email since then about that. But, reach out, give it a whirl. You might be able to get 2 books and a chapbook for $25. And I think that's a hell of a deal, because it's a hell of a story. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing, and we'll see you around next time.